She did a pregnancy test, and just a few hours later, her husband found her dead. On a crisp New Year's Eve in Grapevine Hollow, a celebration would soon turn into a nightmare that would tear a family apart forever. Ashley Fallis, a vibrant mother of 3 with dreams and struggles like many of us, was about to experience a moment that would change everything. Before we dive deep into this gripping story of love, betrayal, and unresolved mystery, take a second to click that subscribe button and join our community of story lovers. Your support helps us bring these incredible real-life narratives to you. Buckle up for a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about relationships, truth, and justice. On the quiet streets of Grapevine Hollow, New Year's Day 2012 began with a scene of unimaginable horror. At precisely 28 years old, Ashley Fallis was rushed to the hospital critically wounded by a single gunshot to her head. What should have been a night of celebration had transformed into a nightmare that would haunt her family for years to come. Just hours earlier, the Fallis residence on Zinfandel Street had been alive with festive energy. Guests mingled, danced, and toasted to the new year, with Tom and Ashley appearing to be the picture of a happy couple. Witnesses would later recall how they had been dancing together, exchanging loving glances that seemed to epitomize marital harmony. The warmth of their interaction belied the tension that would soon shatter their seemingly perfect evening. As midnight approached, a subtle shift occurred. Ashley announced her intention to step outside with her relatives, a seemingly innocent decision that visibly angered her husband, Tom. The mood in the room changed, a barely perceptible electricity crackling beneath the surface of the celebration. Those present would later describe a palpable tension that had not been present earlier in the evening. When Ashley's parents returned home, they were met with a scene of chaos. Police vehicles surrounded the house, paramedics rushing about, and an overwhelming sense of impending tragedy. Tom's version of events seemed riddled with inconsistencies, raising more questions than providing answers. His reputation for a quick temper and controlling nature immediately placed him under suspicion. The investigation would prove to be anything but straightforward. Witness statements fluctuated, physical evidence presented contradictions, and Ashley's personal history added layers of complexity to an already intricate case. Law enforcement found themselves navigating a maze of conflicting narratives, each detail potentially holding the key to understanding what truly transpired that fateful night. In the days and months that followed, one thing became abundantly clear. The events of January 1st, 2012 were far more complicated than they initially appeared. What had begun as a joyous New Year's celebration had transformed into a mystery that would challenge investigators, tear a family apart, and reveal the devastating potential of hidden truths. The final moments of the New Year's celebration were marked by a sudden and explosive argument that would change everything. Tom's anger erupted in front of Ashley's remaining family members, his voice cutting through the festive atmosphere like a knife. As he began yelling at Ashley, her relatives attempted to mediate, hoping to defuse the escalating situation. Their efforts proved futile, and under Tom's increasing hostility, they made the difficult decision to leave, closing the door behind them with a sense of unresolved tension. Left alone, the couple's conflict continued to simmer. Tom's frustration stemmed from what he perceived as excessive family interference in their personal lives. He was particularly incensed that Ashley had spent time outside with her parents during the evening, an action he viewed as a direct challenge to his authority. The alcohol consumed throughout the night had only served to intensify his already volatile emotions, creating a powder keg. According to Tom's later statement, he heard Ashley handling the gun they kept hidden under the mattress. He attempted to question her actions, but before he could complete his sentence, a single gunshot rang out. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the distant sounds of New Year's celebrations still echoing in the neighborhood. Emergency services arrived in the early morning hours of January 1st, 2012, responding to a call that would set in motion a complex investigation. Ashley's parents, Jenna Fox and Joe Redan, were immediate in their accusations. To them, Tom's earlier display of anger was damning evidence of his potential involvement. Initially, the scene appeared to suggest a possible suicide, a conclusion that would later be hotly contested. Investigators from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation noted subtle but significant details that suggested a more complicated narrative. Crooked picture frames and scattered items hinted at a potential struggle. Unsigned divorce papers on the dresser spoke volumes about the couple's troubled relationship, a narrative that stretched back to their meeting in the spring of 2007 through an online dating site, a beginning that now seemed to foreshadow a tragic end. From the moment Ashley and Tom first met, their relationship blazed with an intense and rapid momentum. Ashley, a vibrant and energetic mother of 2 daughters from a previous marriage, quickly captured Tom's heart. Their connection was so powerful that within a year of meeting, they welcomed a son and married just 2 weeks after his birth. In 2010, Tom formally adopted Ashley's daughters, seemingly creating the picture of a blended family united against life's challenges. The family's foundation, however, was far more fragile than it appeared. Their youngest son's diagnosis of hydrocephalus became a crucible of stress and emotional strain. Requiring multiple surgeries, the child's medical condition demanded extraordinary emotional and financial resources. Ashley found herself caught in a relentless cycle of maternal devotion and marital tension, struggling to maintain equilibrium between her children's needs and the growing fractures in her relationship with Tom. Professional challenges compounded Ashley's personal struggles. In 2010, she was terminated from her position at North Colorado Medical Center under controversial circumstances. The official documentation cited insubordination and aggressive behavior, allegations Ashley contested through a successful wrongful termination lawsuit. While she won a financial settlement, the professional wound remained raw, adding another layer of complexity to her already turbulent life. The mounting pressures found an unexpected outlet when Ashley briefly reconnected with a high school sweetheart, an affair that further destabilized her marriage. Simultaneously, she sought psychiatric support, receiving medication to manage severe anxiety. Medical records would later reveal she was experiencing up to 5 panic attacks weekly, a testament to the immense psychological burden she carried. Tom's response to these challenges was notably complex. Despite awareness of Ashley's affair, he chose not to pursue divorce, a decision that spoke volumes about the intricate dynamics of their relationship. The divorce papers discovered by investigators drafted in 2009 revealed that separation had been contemplated earlier due to conflicting work schedules. Yet, they had ultimately chosen reconciliation, a decision that would be scrutinized in the aftermath of the tragedy. In the months preceding that fateful New Year's Eve, Tom claimed their relationship was improving. He had secured stable employment as a corrections officer with the Weld County Sheriff's Office, while Ashley continued to navigate her personal challenges with characteristic resilience. The physical evidence immediately raised red flags for the investigators. Tom's explanation for the scratches, a recent chest shaving incident causing skin irritation, seemed suspiciously convenient. The red marks on his neck, which he attributed to stress, stood in stark contrast to the typical signs of emotional distress. These physical details became a critical focal point, suggesting potential signs of a struggle that Tom was reluctant to address directly. Neighboring witnesses quickly complicated Tom's narrative. Chelsea Origo, a resident near the Fallis home, provided a chilling account that directly contradicted Tom's statements. She reported hearing Ashley's desperate cry, "Get off me!" moments before the fatal gunshot, a detail that cast significant doubt on Tom's claim of not being present during the incident. When confronted with this testimony, Tom vehemently denied any physical altercation, insisting he had simply asked Ashley to stop seeking her mother's advice. The forensic examination introduced even more perplexing elements. The wound's location on the back of Ashley's head presented a significant challenge to the suicide narrative. Investigators pressed Tom on this inconsistency, noting the near impossibility of self-inflicting such a wound. In a move that appeared designed to demonstrate his innocence, Tom demanded gunpowder residue tests for both himself and Ashley, a request that highlighted his apparent confidence in his version of events. As Ashley fought for her life in the hospital, the investigation intensified. Tom's demeanor fluctuated between devastation and defiance. He claimed to have held Ashley immediately after the incident, believing she was still breathing and had a chance of survival. His emotional state became another layer of complexity for investigators to navigate. After 3 hours of rigorous questioning, law enforcement found themselves in a frustrating position, unable to obtain a confession, but equally unable to definitively rule Tom out as a suspect. The medical examiner's swift conclusion added another shocking dimension to the case. Just 4 days after the incident, Ashley's death was officially ruled a voluntary act, a determination made before the completion of critical laboratory tests. This premature conclusion raised significant questions about the thoroughness of the initial investigation. Medical professionals and forensic experts would later point to the numerous inconsistencies that seemed to be overlooked in this hasty determination. Tom's repeated assertions of innocence became increasingly passionate as the investigation progressed. "I could never harm my wife," he would later tell investigators, his words hanging in the air between accusation and genuine grief. The case had transformed from a tragic incident into a complex puzzle of conflicting evidence, emotional testimonies, and unresolved questions that would haunt the Fallis family for years to come. The initial closure of Ashley's case left her family in a state of profound shock and disbelief. They were convinced that the investigation had been hastily conducted, with Tom potentially receiving preferential treatment due to his connections within the law enforcement community. Despite Tom's role being in a separate corrections agency, the family believed his professional standing had unduly influenced the investigation's outcome, casting a long shadow of doubt over the entire proceeding. To maintain investigative integrity, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation was brought in almost immediately. However, significant procedural errors quickly became apparent. Tom was not separated from potential witnesses at the scene, a fundamental violation of standard investigative protocols. Even more critically, his hands were left uncovered, potentially contaminating or destroying crucial forensic evidence that could have provided definitive insights into the night's events. Ashley's family became vocal critics of the investigation's approach. They argued that the 3-hour interrogation was woefully inadequate for a case involving such a suspicious death. Their persistent belief was that investigators had initially been reluctant to treat Tom as a serious suspect, only changing their approach after Jenna and Joe's relentless demands for a thorough investigation. The superficial nature of the initial inquiry seemed to confirm their worst fears about the system's failings. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Tom made a decisive move. He relocated with the children to Indiana, settling near his sister and enrolling in college to pursue a bachelor's degree. To many, a breakthrough came through an unexpected source: Justin Joseph, a persistent reporter who uncovered a critical witness. Nick Glover, a 17-year-old neighbor, provided testimony that would dramatically alter the investigation's landscape. He claimed to have witnessed emergency vehicles at the residence and, more shockingly, reported hearing Tom explicitly say to Ashley's parents, "I shot my wife," a statement that directly contradicted the initial findings. The most disturbing revelation was the apparent suppression of Nick's testimony. Despite sharing his account with Detective Michael Yates, there was no record of his statement in any official police reports. This systematic omission raised serious questions about potential corruption within the investigative team. The suggestion of a deliberate cover-up gained traction, with suspicions mounting that Detective Yates might have intentionally overlooked critical evidence to protect Tom. In April 2014, more than 2 years after Ashley's death, the Evans Police Department made a significant decision. They reopened the case, acknowledging the mounting evidence and public pressure. This renewed investigation represented more than just a legal proceeding. It was a testament to a family's unwavering commitment to discovering the truth about Ashley's final moments, a quest for justice that would not be silenced by bureaucratic indifference. The reopened investigation brought forth a series of explosive allegations against Detective Michael Yates. Investigators claimed he had deliberately omitted key evidence and potentially altered witness testimonies to support the narrative of Ashley's suicide. Law enforcement officials vehemently denied any impropriety, insisting that the investigation had been conducted with the utmost fairness and professional integrity. On November 18, 2014, the long-awaited moment arrived. Tom Fallis was arrested near his home in Indiana, marking a significant turning point in the case. Tom was charged with second-degree manslaughter, a charge he continued to contest with unwavering determination. The case had captured public imagination, largely due to the investigative work of reporter Justin Joseph, who had persistently pursued the story. Intriguing details emerged during the investigation, including speculation about bruises on Ashley's legs and a flashlight found at the crime scene. However, subsequent investigation revealed the flashlight belonged to an emergency responder attempting to provide first aid, a detail that momentarily sparked but ultimately diffused one line of speculation. The prosecution constructed a chilling narrative of the fatal moment. They argued that during a confrontation, Tom had seized the Taurus 9mm handgun Ashley kept hidden under the mattress. According to their theory, he pressed the weapon to her head and fired at close range, then carefully lowered her body to the floor before calling emergency services. This version stood in stark contrast to Tom's continued claims of innocence and the initial ruling of suicide. Ashley's mother, Jenna Fox, became a pivotal witness, providing crucial testimony about the events leading to the tragedy. She described Tom's aggressive behavior during the New Year's Eve party, highlighting his use of harsh language and confrontational attitude. Tom flatly denied these allegations, maintaining his version of events. In a dramatic revelation, Jenna also shared the family's complex history of mental health challenges, noting that Ashley's grandmother and uncle had previously taken their own lives. The prosecution attempted to leverage this family history, suggesting it might support a suicide narrative. However, Ashley's primary psychiatrist provided crucial contradictory testimony. As of December 2011, the doctor testified Ashley showed no signs of depression or suicidal ideation. The defense introduced a complex layer of medical complexity, revealing that Ashley had been simultaneously seeing two psychiatrists and a therapist, a situation that had resulted in potentially overlapping and inconsistent. Jonathan Priest, another forensic expert, offered a particularly compelling analysis. After meticulously reviewing case materials and visiting the crime scene, Priest concluded that Tom had been extremely close to Ashley when the fatal shot was fired. His reasoning was based on blood spatter patterns and the timeline of first responders' documentation. If Tom had been positioned further away, Priest argued, the blood distribution would have been significantly different. This testimony added a critical forensic perspective to the increasingly complex legal proceedings. The prosecution meticulously constructed a psychological profile that highlighted Ashley's emotional struggles. Medical evidence revealed that despite her previous ligation, she could have potentially become pregnant. More critically, Ashley had believed herself pregnant 3 times in the 9 months preceding her death, a series of emotional disappointments that psychiatrists argued could have significantly impacted her mental state. These revelations added layers of complexity to the already intricate narrative of her final days. In April 2014, 2 years after Ashley's death, the Evans Police Department made the pivotal decision to reopen the investigation. New allegations emerged against Detective Michael Yates with accusations of evidence manipulation and testimony alteration. Law enforcement officials staunchly defended the original investigation's integrity, dismissing claims of bias and insisting on the impartiality of the initial proceedings. Nick Glover emerged as a key witness, providing testimony that would become a cornerstone of the prosecution's case. He claimed to have overheard Tom's alleged confession, stating that Tom had said, "I shot my wife." His friend Chelsea Origo was initially believed to corroborate this account, with Nick's mother, Kathy, asserting that Chelsea had heard Ashley shouting, "Get off me." However, the narrative quickly became complicated when Chelsea testified that her recollection was clouded by alcohol consumption that night. Nick remained adamant about his memory, insisting that such a confession was impossible to forget. His testimony drew significant investigative attention, particularly focusing on Detective Michael Yates' initial interview. An internal review was launched to examine why this potentially crucial statement had not been documented in the original investigation. Despite intense scrutiny, the investigation found the defense strategically dismantled Nick's credibility during cross-examination. They highlighted a perplexing aspect of his testimony. Despite allegedly hearing a confession, Nick had maintained a friendly relationship with Tom. He continued to participate in family activities, including camping trips and Christmas celebrations. When pressed about this apparent contradiction, Nick's responses became increasingly evasive, responding over 90 times with the phrase, "I don't remember." A new dimension was added to the investigation when former Weld County Sheriff's Deputy Chris Graves came forward with his own account. Graves claimed to have been at the scene and heard Tom's emotional outburst, "I can't believe I shot her. I can't believe she's dead." This testimony added another layer of complexity to the already intricate narrative, presenting yet another potentially critical piece of evidence that challenged the original investigation's conclusions. The accumulation of these testimonies created a mosaic of uncertainty. Each witness brought forward a fragment of potential truth, yet none provided the definitive narrative that would conclusively explain the events of that tragic New Year's Eve. The legal proceedings had transformed from a simple investigation into a complex exploration of memory, perception, and the elusive nature of truth itself. The defense methodically dismantled Chris Graves' testimony by highlighting critical inconsistencies. Despite the crime scene being crowded with law enforcement personnel, family members, and neighbors, no one corroborated Graves' account of Tom's alleged outburst. Remarkably, Graves had not detained Tom at the scene, citing jurisdictional limitations. and had inexplicably delayed filing any official reports about his statements for 3 full years following the incident. Graves' professional credibility came under intense scrutiny when it was revealed that he had been dismissed from the sheriff's office for dishonesty. This revelation cast significant doubt on the prosecution's narrative and raised serious questions about the reliability of his testimony. The defense strategically used this information to challenge the prosecution's core arguments. Forensic evidence further complicated the prosecution's case. Gunshot residue tests painted a contradictory picture. Tom's hands showed no trace of gunshot residue, while Ashley's hands tested positive. Physical evidence of a potential struggle was equally problematic. Scratches on Tom's chest. Ashley's parents pursued legal action against the Evans Police Department, arguing that critical testimony from Nick Glover in 2012 had been systematically ignored and that other potentially key witnesses remained silent. Despite their passionate efforts, the lawsuits were ultimately dismissed. Though Tom was acquitted, the family remained steadfastly convinced of his guilt. In a testament to their commitment to the children, they negotiated and secured visitation rights, ensuring they could maintain a meaningful connection with their grandchildren despite the painful circumstances surrounding Ashley's death. Tom Fallis faced significant challenges in the aftermath of the trial. The legal proceedings had depleted his financial resources, forcing him to carefully reconstruct his life while simultaneously pursuing further education. To protect and provide stability for the children, he made the strategic decision to relocate to another state, moving closer to his sister's support network. In conversations with his children, Tom chose a carefully measured approach, explaining that their mother had died in an accident while reserving more detailed discussions for a time when they would be emotionally prepared to understand the complexity of the situation. The case of Ashley Fallis remains an enigmatic narrative that defies simple resolution. Each attempt to uncover the truth seems to generate more questions than answers, creating a labyrinth of uncertainty. The story epitomizes the challenging nature of judicial proceedings, where legal outcomes do not always align with personal convictions. The blurred boundaries between truth and perception continue to cast long shadows, leaving Ashley's story suspended in a liminal space of unresolved mystery, challenging observers to confront the inherent complexities of human experience and judicial interpretation. The story of Ashley Fallis reveals the complex and often hidden tensions that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly normal relationships. Her case reminds us that domestic struggles are rarely simple and that the truth can be obscured by perception, power, and systemic failures. The investigation showed how quickly life can change, how family dynamics can become dangerous, and how important it is to listen carefully to those who might be experiencing hidden pain. Each of us has a responsibility to pay attention to the subtle signs of distress in our loved ones and in our community. As we reflect on Ashley's story, we're reminded that justice is not always straightforward, and some mysteries may never be fully resolved. If you found this story compelling, drop a comment below, subscribe to help our community grow, and share this with someone who might find meaning in Ashley's journey. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light.